This episode contains discussions of religious trauma and a brief mention of suicide. Listen at your own discretion. It is Thursday, the 1st of May, 2025. My name is Pigeon Rose, and this is my song of the day. It's the 1st of May. There is a different song that I considered doing today, both this year and last year, for the 1st of May, because I know a song called 1st of May. But if you know that song by Jonathan Coulton, I think you will agree that it's not really fitting, both for the first or last week, because it's a very silly song and not really the tone I intend to strike here, both at the beginning and at the end. So today, instead, we're just continuing to wrap up things, kind of season-long arcs, so to speak. Today we're talking about At Last, the Celestial Being Speaks by Quiet Company. Now, you may recall I've talked about a few songs from Quiet Company's album We Are All Where We Belong, which was described as a breakup album with religion. The narrator of the album, which is the lead singer Taylor Muse, had a crisis of faith, and the songs reflect that. There's all sorts of questionings of Christian doctrine, of the actions of Christians, of the presence of faith in his life, how it affects his relationships with people. It's a really interesting and great album. And today, because we're at the end here, we're talking about the final track of the album before the bonus track, At Last the Celestial Being Speaks, which kind of wraps everything up in a neat little package. Which is to say that, like, beforehand it's all Taylor Muse's musings on the situation, and then this song wraps it up in a unique way. So I won't say any more about that, because we should just listen to it. So let's go listen to it now and then come back in a few minutes and talk about it. And that was At Last, the Celestial Being Speaks by Quiet Company. So this song comes right at the end, after Taylor's gone on his journey of self-discovery and interrogating his own faith. The final song is God emerging from the clouds and speaking his own mind. And I really think that's interesting for the finale of the album, where he's like struggling with his religion, and then it ends with God actually showing up, but giving a general message. And I like that as a device. I think it's like, I don't think there could be a more fitting ending unless he went like really violently atheist with it. I think this is like a really clever and mature ending to the album, you know. The subtitle, by the way, I've mentioned that many of the songs have subtitles in parentheses, and the subtitle for this one is The Utterly Indifferent. Anyway, I like how this song does what a lot of Quiet Company songs do. It starts with just guitar, acoustic guitar, and then the band comes in, and there's trumpets and strings and everything. It becomes a whole big, loud song. But it's not one of the songs where he just randomly starts screaming. I shouldn't say randomly, but it's not one of the songs where he starts yelling out of nowhere. I don't think that would fit in this song. But it is a song that references the title of the album again. So, let's go through the lyrics. God was hanging out wherever God does his hanging out, when he looked down at us through the clouds and said, "What have I done?" I don't know why that line amuses me so much. God was hanging out wherever God does his hanging out. It's funny. But it like, the phrasing is funny, but it serves a purpose, because theoretically he's talking about the Christian God, because he was a Christian, and that's what he's talking about the whole album. But when he says wherever God does his hanging out, even though it specifies his and says God singular, it does leave it open to be interpreted as being about other religions or other interpretations of where God is, if he's in heaven or what, you know. So I like how it's not as specific as it could be. He could have been like, you know, God was in heaven looking down at us, and his name is Emmanuel and all that stuff. So when he looked down at us through the clouds, so I mean that does give the classical heaven image, but, and said, "What have I done?" He looks at humanity and thinks the great experiment has failed, you know. I didn't mean to be so abstract, so elusive, you see, but I don't see why you should believe that you needed me. Such an interesting message to have in this album. He says, "What have I done? I didn't mean to be so abstract, so elusive, you see." He didn't mean for his message to be twisted, because the Bible is like pretty straightforward about a lot of things, but it's very outdated because it was written by people 2,000-ish years ago, and a lot of their values from the time are in it, and then people who've retranslated it in later times, like King James famously, have changed things or added things to make it fit their values and so on. And people have used verse out of context to justify horrific things like the Crusades and ongoing modern day evangelical Christians who campaign against queer people and often black people and things like this, right? Like, just the amount of bigotry and hatred that has come out of this religion. And God is saying, I gave you instructions that I thought were specific and clear, and I don't understand how you haven't followed them. But he's not saying it's your fault. He's saying, I didn't mean to be so abstract, so elusive. Like, I thought I did a good job of elucidating it to you, right? But I don't see why you should believe that you needed me. That's the important line here, because he's saying that, like, I thought I did a pretty good job of telling you this, but the message isn't that you should worship God. The message is that you should all follow the things I told you to do. And I'll explain that better. Because you all belong to the earth that I placed you on, so lift up your heads, don't worry about death. You're all going to be just fine. So what he basically is saying is, it doesn't matter whether you believe in God. It doesn't matter whether you're a Christian, Catholic, Protestant, Muslim, Jew, Hindu, Buddhist, Taoist, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, black, white, gay, straight, any of these things. He says, you all belong to the earth that I placed you on. I made humans to live on earth, and I made the earth for humans to live on. And that is your purpose here, and that is what I placed you here for. It doesn't matter what you believe in, as long as you believe in yourselves and each other, as long as you love each other, as long as you respect each other, as long as you live life how you're supposed to. So lift up your heads, don't worry about death, you're all going to be just fine. Sweet, simple message. I love it so much. I personally, as I've probably stated in previous episodes, do not believe in God. I've been an atheist since I was like 11 or 12, but I have great respect for messages like this, where it's like, it doesn't matter what your personal beliefs are, because your personal beliefs should never interfere with other people's lives. So lift up your heads, don't worry about death, you're all going to be just fine. It's a great message to end the album with, and I love it so much. And then we get the whole hallelujah section, which is great. I love it so much. Again, non-believer, hallelujah is a great word. I love singing it. And then the God perspective goes away, and it comes back to Taylor Muse, the personal perspective. We all belong to the earth that we sprang up from, so lift up your heads, don't worry about death. We're all going to be just fine. I love that. It changes from you all belong to the earth I placed you on to we all belong to the earth that we sprang up from. So this is, again, a less God-centric idea, but he's saying that, like, again, it doesn't matter. We all belong here because we are here, and that just makes sense. So lift up your heads, don't worry about death. We're all going to be just fine. This is him speaking to the rest of humanity. It's so good. It's such a good ending. It's such an optimistic ending. After some of there's bits in this album where he talks about wanting to kill himself. There's some horrific things in here, and then to end with this is such a positive ending, and I love it so much. And I thought it was fitting to cover that in our last week here, so thank you so much for listening. Please hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment down below, tell me what you think, tell other people about this show. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.
Break it down.
Oh, God.